Palestine is a metaphor today to understand the world. But the reason why many of us have woken up on October 7 or after October 7, and many in power insist in maintaining that pretense that it's really the abomination of the past 2 years that we should be talking about. This is just a projection of that cultural hegemony. So there are many things I think we might go back to in our exchange. It's also understanding the counterinsurgency. The counter in this that is coming from popular action. But however, to put what's happening in context, because it also concerns the history of this country. I mean, for me, it's painful to come back to this country, to this city, which has been a laboratory of imperialism and has the audacity through its government officials to continue impose that colonial mindset, having also the pretense of embodying the rule of law. Come on, give us a break. There is this movie that has just come out, that it's Palestine 1936, that shows the beginning of the end for the Palestinian as a people. And the responsibility is of the British government back then, and now there is a necessity to unpack it, to go back to it, because Israel has inherited practices that were experimented on the Palestinians by the British first and foremost. The punitive house demolition, the administrative detention, or the systematization of torture. This is something that was part of the colonial architecture through which the British established their presence in Palestine, and then gave away a land that was never theirs to give. So we cannot understand what's happening today without going back to British colonial presence in Palestine. But because it also speaks to the resistance, that word that we cannot pronounce, connected to the Palestinians, because it resonates with terrorism. No, but for the Palestinians, resistance is a necessity, and it's primarily peaceful. It's resisting in a place against all odds and against attempts to remove them physically, culturally, and spiritually. This has been the continuation of colonial presence. I mean, I wish Israel could be something different. I hope. I'm not questioning Israel for what it is, but for what it does. And if Israel didn't want to be accused of colonial practices, it should not behave as a colonial power, as a colonial entity, taking land, displacing the people, and practicing really settler colonial methods. So, but going back to resistance for the Palestinians is historical, not ideological. It started in 1936-39. This was the first intifada, in fact, an uprising against the British, and it has continued. It has continued, and it will always continue. And honestly, in as much as I condemn violence of all forms, civilians should never be touched, should never be targeted, neither Israelis nor Palestinians nor anyone else. Violence becomes inevitable when when powers deprive a population to benefit from the law and seeing law works. Because what we see today, and this is where I will conclude, what we see today in Gaza, is it the failure of the law? Yes, to an extent, because law, the international legal system would have been sufficient to prevent, to stop, and to make reparations for what is happening. And it's not. As we speak, there are people, children and their families in the elements, exposed to the elements. I mean, it's painful. For me, it's really physically, it has become physically painful coexist with the thought of what is going on in Gaza, like in the rest of the occupied Palestinian territory as we speak. And this is what's happening is the result of political ineptitude, inadequacy, and complicity. So we have had 2 years of genocide, which are the culmination of 60 years of impunity, and it continues. And it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop until and unless things change in London or in Rome or in Berlin or in Paris. So it brings the responsibility upon us. So basically, I've written 7 reports by now as a UN Special Rapporteur on self-determination, on children, on carcerality, so that why nearly 1 million Palestinians have been detained by Israel, including children, 12-year-old children, in nearly 60 years. But then October 7 happened, and this violent military campaign was unleashed against Gaza. And so, Anatomy of a Genocide, it's an X-ray of acts that have been committed. And we shouldn't, I'm also upset with lawyers sometimes, because it seems that they go around what's happening in Gaza with a microscope looking for the intent behind each act. But no, I say, in order to understand the genocidal intent, take a step back. Look at the entire picture. Look at what has led the violence to be so furious, which is the widespread dehumanization of the Palestinians among Israelis, most Israelis, unfortunately, but also here, frankly. I mean, yesterday I was in an interview and someone, a journalist at Channel 4 said, "Oh, but don't you think that you are part of the problem being such a purist? Purist because I keep on complaining that 400 Palestinians have been killed since the beginning of a ceasefire, and the question that it's really a ceasefire." And they say, yeah, but it's less than before. So is it normal that 10, 20 people are killed every day, or 3? No, it's not. And this is why I say this doesn't speak only to how bad the situation is on the ground, but how miserable, what kind of monsters we have become in this society where we can normalize this situation. But however, so I traced this, and then I spoke of how this genocide is part of a colonial erasure. Genocide is a means to an end, is a crime where the intentional destruction of the Palestinians as such. And please, if there were one element I would like to keep from the is it genocide or is not genocide, look at how people are treated. They don't count as children, as doctors, or as journalists. As long as they are Palestinians, they are presumed guilty, then targeted. They become killable, they become destroyable, they become torturable because they are Palestinians. They are Palestinians, therefore they are a threat. And this is a common element to all genocides. The Bosnians were killable, rapeable, torturable, and so the Tutsi in Rwanda. But then I also understood, because I kept on asking myself, how come we cannot stop it? And I decided that over this year, I would unpack the complicity. For sure, there is state complicity. And in my last report, this is what I write. I mean, I document how 62 states, including this one, provide military, diplomatic, political, strategic support to Israel to continue to commit its crimes. And also, I mean, Israel is embedded in our economy. And this is part of the problem. But this is where the private sector is so critical, because the private sector has been, and I'm talking of arms manufacturers, producers of heavy machinery like Caterpillar, for example. All this has been used, the use of force has been used to displace the Palestinians from the occupied Palestinian territory, but then also to replace them with colonies. Think of all the businesses that have contributed to build infrastructure, roads, electricity grid, or to exploit Palestinian resources. I mentioned 48 businesses, but there is this Heidelberg cement company, this German company, which gets concessions from the State of Israel to extract extract from the quarries in the occupied Palestinian territory. So they are participating in an international crime, in a war crime of pillage. They are pillaging Palestinian resources to build the colonies. Or Volvo, it's providing trucks and heavy machineries that is after being used to pulverize and to demolish Palestinian homes. Now they are this Hyundai and Volvo machinery is being used to turn into dust what remains of the buildings of Gaza. This is why I say this industry has been used to maintain an economy of occupation that has helped Israel, but also has made these businesses profitable, and now it's turning into an economy of genocide. So these businesses, which should have disengaged from Israel before October, for decades there was documentation of the human rights impact that they would have, and they have not done it. So violating their obligations their responsibilities under international law. But there is another aspect that it's even more sadistic and cynical, is that it's not just businesses, it's universities, research centers, banks, pension funds. There is not one sector of our economy, of our economic life that is not that doesn't lead to what Israel is doing. Even the Norwegian pension fund, for me, this has been the prime example of hypocrisy, because Norway, allegedly one of the friendliest states toward the Palestinians, has its pension fund, meaning they sell oil and the revenues are invested. 10% of the sovereign wealth of Norway is invested in all the companies I investigated, which are little. I have a database of 1,000 entries, and 48 of them, you have the Norwegian pension funds like footprint. 10% of its value is invested in these 48. So of course, you say, how shocking it is. You need to divest. There has been pressure, there has been some divestment. The Labour Party even won the elections, promising that they would disengage from these businesses. And then what do? The moment they are in parliament, they ally themselves with the right-wing forces to say, you know what, not only we are not going to divest, but we are even scrapping the ethical guidelines. Who needs them? So this is the world we live in. It's important for people to understand what's happening to us, to me, to Palestinian human rights organizations, and to the judges and prosecutors of the International Criminal Court. We are all sanctioned. Yes, I am the first UN person in 80 years to ever be sanctioned, and I hope I'm the last one. But there has not been a robust enough response, or a robust enough response to this to have the sanctions lifted, the only thing that should happen. So the sanctions mean that we are considered like criminals under the U.S. In the U.S. legal system. We represent a threat to the U.S. security. We are banned from traveling to the U.S., which of course has an impact on me because I should be presenting my reports to the General Assembly. But what happens to us personally, it's even more pernicious because we are financially censored. So we cannot open a bank account. And not just in the US, because wherever we are dominated, when it comes to banks, we are under US law. This is the reality, because if a bank opens an account to me, they might incur in secondary sanctions, which are what every US person engaging with us risks. Penalties up to $1 million. Any American citizen here, don't come to me even offering a chewing gum, because you could be liable of, you would commit a felony. So you could be held up in jail, you could be arrested up to 20 years, and you could have to pay up to $1 million for engaging with me. And what have I done other than, I mean, I was in an interview with Tucker Carlson. I was shocked. I said, oh my God, but is there anything else you are not saying? No. Do you have relations with Hamas? No. And even if, no, but it's no. It's this. It's not, it's about me, but it's not about me. It's not about me because through sanctioning me or the ICC or Palestinian Human Rights Organization, they're trying and failing to sanction the truth, to silence the truth. But it also has a very personal dimension in my case because I am the mother of an American daughter, of an American citizen. Where is our First Amendment? It's such a betrayal, what the U.S. I mean, I used to live in the U.S. I used to, I had an affiliation with a U.S. university. I used to lecture there. Everything has been cut down, and the chilling effect on those U.S. persons working with me, it's felt. So this is the world we live in.